Hi there. I'd like to make a quick video on purifying Malchus, the last of these three parts, most probably, one on racism, and some of the pressures that I encountered in the Orthodox community. The reason why I named it Purifying the Right is because, well, I started from the right. I started with Jordan Peterson, that I worked with him and was really touting the party line until very recently that I saw their extreme limitations to what he believes, especially when it comes to racism. And ever since my working in collaboration with him, I went on to experiment with different religions. Christianity was the first, and it didn't work out. I'm not going to go into it here. Eventually, I mean, look, it's an obvious choice, Orthodox Judaism, because evidentiary wise, it has the best foundation, mass revelation, with 600,000 people, an unbroken tradition. There are so many sages, so many scholars in this tradition. It's like a whole scientific literature of its own. There's really nothing to compare in terms of rigor and robustness, in terms of argumentation and the effort, the amount of spiritual effort that's put into it to find the truth. Nietzsche said that the Jewish people were the most spiritually elevated people in Europe, and he didn't distinguish between Orthodox or conservative or Reform, but hey, he was speaking about the Jewish people in general. However, in general, the deaf psychologists have categorized the people of the East as being more spiritual. I remember Jung writing that in one of his essays, and the Torah also agrees with that, because out of the three, say, family members that manifest itself in Europe, in Israel, and in the Middle East, the people of Esav, the people of Israel, and the people of Ishmael, Esav is the most materialistic. And if you look at Jordan Peterson as one manifestation, he's very intellectual, but he'll never admit he believes in God, because to him he starts from an intellectual bottom-up perspective. And people in the Middle East may not succeed. Well, they're making significant strides nowadays, especially with a collaboration with China. But their material status has not been so elevated. But spiritually, Ishmael died at Tzaddik. He was a very saintly individual. And so going back to a lot of the current conflict of racism, I think a lot of the current conflict is the conflict between material and spiritual, if we want to just make it quite simplified. It is the conflict between the materialistic Esav and the spiritual Ishmael, and the mediator, Israel, who is currently more sided with Esav than with Ishmael. He's really roused the ire of the entire nations of Ishmael, the Arabic nations. I find that to be the issue when I was in the Orthodox community, that people resented me for how spiritual I was. People resented me for fasting. People resented me for being totally absorbed in my prayers, in my singing, and and I try my best not to bother people, and yet it still creates an issue for people. And part of that, of course, going back to what Peterson likes to say, that we shouldn't have a victim's narrative. Well, I understand there's no victim's narrative, but there's certainly an oppressor and oppressed, and there's certainly a master and slave. If you look in each other, these things are there. Now, I think the Torah has a solution for it, and I think it's Gemara Sanhedrin 1. I may be misquoting. Maybe one of the earlier Sanhedrins. One of the lessons was that we shouldn't just complain, but offer a solution. So the solution, I've recently discovered, thank God, is to make, well, this may only make sense at first to a Jewish audience, a Mesechet Siyam, which is a celebration of finishing a tractate of Gemara. Now, when a person does finish that, they can recite a quick prayer, and And the meal that a person eats afterwards is sanctified, it's made holy. And so the solution really is eating, and it is holy eating, and it is eating in a holy way. Now, people might not all be able to do a Mesechet Siyum, but I believe this is the key. And thankfully, I am very privileged and gifted to be a Jew and to be able to conduct Mesechet Siyum. And I hope to, God willing, do it regularly. And I believe that this will contribute to the peaceful coexistence and collaboration of the spirit and the material in the service of God.